So I want to welcome everybody to this Zoomcast today, which is actually a Zoomcast that is really pretty heavy, as much as there is hopefully some optimism that we'll start to feel toward the end. I have with me here Omri Almog, whose sister and nieces and nephew were kidnapped into Gaza, who lost his brother-in-law and another niece in the attack on Kfar Aza on October 7th, and who has himself had to leave his home in the north, not because of the situation on the Lebanon border, but in order to be able to rally around the family and some older parents who were also displaced during this difficult time. Welcome, Omri.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For sure. And I also have with me Mimi Rozmaryn, who works with Meir Panim, who is here to talk about some of the displaced people that her own organization is working with for the last almost 90 days since the start of the war. Omri, I want to start by actually having you just give us a little bit of your story. You have your own family and you're only two siblings, you and your sister, you said, in your immediate nuclear original family. So talk to me about what happened in Kfar Aza that day to the people that you love the most.
First in Kfar Aza live a bunch of family. My parents live in Kfar Aza. My brother-in-law parents, Nadav's parents, live also in Kfar Aza for many, many years, since 1967. Nadav's sister with the four daughters, also live in Kfar Aza with her husband, and they're all safe. My Nadav's sister, actually her husband, saw in the morning the parachute, and in the field she saw some Toyota Hilux running into the kibbutz. He put the family in the car, all the family, and run away from the kibbutz, and he success leaving the kibbutz. In the last moment, they shooting at him, but he just barely made it out and left the kibbutz. When he go out the kibbutz, he could make a left to Sderot or right to Netivot, and he make a right. If he would bear left, he would find more Hamas regime, but he make a right and he was safe. We exchange email with Yam. Yam is the older daughter. She was the only one in the safe room with the WhatsApp, and we exchange WhatsApp with her. My parents and other parents were in a trip in out of state in Bulgaria, which is helped them to be safe. That day it was a trip of elderly from Kfar Aza, and we start to exchange WhatsApp with her and talk to her and try to call her. Around just before 12 noon, we lost communication with them. My sister and Nadav wasn't available that day. We tried to reach them, we couldn't. And that's it. They broke into the safe room and they shot Nadav in the front of them. They opened the closet. They said to them, take some clothes. And they put some clothes on and they go out and they try to take Nadav car because it's a factory car, it's a business car, and they couldn't turn it on, and they take the other car, which belonged to Chen, to my sister. And when they go out, Yam, the older daughter, was really, really in a bad mood, and she was really nervous, and she probably was faint at the door. And the kids were in another way at the front of the house, sitting with the Hamas, trying to turn on the car. And she go back and forth from the youngest kids, because she has two kids, 9 and 11, Gal and Tal. And she have Yam and Agam. Agam, she's almost 18. And she ran between them, and one of the moments she ran back to Yam to try to bring her on and bring her with them. She saw that they shot her in the head, and she looked at her and she left her, and that's the way they go to Gaza. And when everything was quiet, there's no shooting, there's no army, there's no nothing. They just drive 6-7 minutes and they were in Gaza. When they crossed the border to Gaza, they stopped. They put some bodies in the back of the car, probably Hamas bodies, and they keep going to Gaza. Gam said to the boys, don't look back, just look forward. And that's it. 51 days they were kidnapped. My family, we are a family of three. I have a younger daughter. She's 14 years old, almost 15, actually. My boy is 20. He just got to the army a month ago, in the middle of everything. And my older daughter, she lives in Herzliya with her boyfriend, and she's also she's 23 years old. So I now, after I have some kind of a strategy, and I do my best to bring them back. I go to wherever I felt is a good path to go. I didn't go with many families together and talk to people because I didn't see it will work. I do my strategy was to talk to people that not thinking like us and try to get support from them. I went to Belgium. I went to the Union Europe with a good people. It was 5 families that went there, and I think we success there very much because we talk at the Union. We met with people at NATO. We met the Red Cross in Belgium, and we met with the foreign minister of Belgium. She's Algerian born, and she can talk to Iran. She have a very good roots, I would call it, to talk to them because she helped them in many situations, which Israel cannot. And that's it. And we understand that we really, in Israel, especially these communities, Paraza, Be'eri, Niroz, all these kibbutz around, we are just used, as we call it, because there is much more strong forces around us, like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iran, that ruin everything that happened in the Middle East, especially in Gaza. Now that we are fighting Gaza, it's much more clear because they still fighting after 80 days, 82 days. The Hamas is still fighting, and we see how not strong, but they're still there. So Israel, with all the forces and all the power that we have, is not really helping in this situation because these forces, you need to come to them from the top. I met also with people from the UNICEF, and UNICEF also supported by Qatar and by Iran. I don't know if you noticed, but when the Hamas regime go into Israel, when they go into Paraza, they have some blood bags and some medicine bags with UNICEF sign on them.
Right.
Which means UNICEF gave this material to Gaza, and they use it against us. And you have to understand that Qatar and Iran and also, you know, organization like UNICEF, they got the money from Qatar. And Qatar play a very strong role in all this situation. And
Omri,
they used us.
For sure. I want to take you back, though, to the story of your family. So since they came out, that was about, a few weeks ago during the hostage prisoner exchange when we had a 6-day ceasefire. So during that, since that happened, you said that they are physically okay, but they are not mentally okay. They're also not back at home because nobody's been able to return to Kfar Aza. So talk about what's happening now. I mean, what kind of support do they need and are they getting? And what about this idea of being displaced? I mean, where is everyone living and how are they surviving?
Kfar Aza community is in a few places. The main place that they stay is in Shfaim. And this is where all the kids are. This is where all the studies there, the classrooms. and the people, the community. So probably they're gonna move to there. Since they're coming back, they stay in hotel in Tel Aviv, and we move the kids back and forth to Shfaim, and the two families here support them. And they were 1 week at the Schneider Hospital till they release, and since then they are at the hotel. The hotel, Dan Panorama, does incredible support to us, and they do whatever we want. And it's much easy, to transform from the kidnap to the hotel, and then they move to Shfaim probably to live there. They don't have house. Mentally, they have support from a lot of people around them every day. The kids, Chen, Agam, and basically we let them do whatever they want because they need to be first to feel free, to feel that we support them. And I'm sure there's a new life. There's a long way to go. And you have to understand these two people, Yam and Nadav, are playing very strong role in the family. Nadav is also the older son of the Goldstein, and Yam is the older son for Nadav and Chen. And this loss is huge. Kfar Aza lost 62 people. I'm not sure the community can understand or they can do anything now to understand that it takes time. The community is strong, and the community, most of the people wants to go back to Kfar Aza. But there is many steps to do. First, to bring back all the hostages that's still there for over 82 days. This is a gap, a huge disbelief between the families and the people that live in Israel and the government. Is part of the oath between the citizen and the government that they need to bring everybody back. Then they need to finish this, to change the atmosphere in Gaza. We cannot go back to Kfar Aza and Nachal Oz and Be'eri if the Hamas is still there. So it takes time. We understand that it takes time for the community to go back, and we lost. We lost here because when I go out of Israel, they look at us as very strong state in any situation. On October 7, we are very weak, and it's hard to understand. I'm talking about the world. It's hard to explain the world what happened to us, about the kids, about the elderly, about the women, because most of the people that they kidnapped is people that have nothing to do with this conflict. And they took them out from bed, out from the house, out from the safe room. They see us in a very bad situation. People do bad things in the safe room. As citizen, you sit there for so many hours. You do your you poo there, and you are you afraid. They saw our faces. They saw our in very bad situation, and with this, they take everybody out. They kidnapped everybody. We don't know anything. This cruel organization and torture organization need to take out from the global community. They cannot live on the same planet we do, and this is we understand, and the world start to understand it, and hopefully we're going to see a bright horizon, bright future for this community and for Israel. Israel is very strong. Israel will not live where we at now, but we need to finish the Hamas, and we need to go back and rebuild this community. This is part of the rebuild mentally these families and these people. I cannot tell you if Chen and the family will go back to Kfar Aza, if my parents will go back to Kfar Aza. They have houses there, new houses, but the houses is completely broke. Nadav parents, they don't have house. The house is burned, nothing left. So they need to build a new house. But to build a new house, you need to make sure it's safe to live there. After it's safe to live there, you can build a community. So this is a lot of parts that need to be done.
So let me turn for a minute to Mimi, if that's okay. Mimi, you're hearing this story, which I get, given what Meir Panim does, working with people who are at risk, who are in poverty and in need. And since the war, certainly with all of the displaced families across the country, over 200,000 displaced families across the country, is Omri's story a story that is typical to what you hear? And what does the organization have to offer families like this?
Omri's story, I think, is a terrible thing to hear for anyone, as you said. And I think it does represent one of the most extreme cases that we've heard, and just the layers of tragedy that him and his family that you're dealing with is insurmountable. The people, for the most part, that we're seeing, everyone that walks in through the doors of any branch of Meir Panim has a story. I think the level of intensity that him and his family have experienced and are experiencing is more intense than a lot of the people that we're helping, because he's getting support, and they're getting support from the government and other NGOs in other ways. But what's important that we find is that everyone that walks into the door of any branch at Meir Panim has a story and is experiencing trauma on a deep level. And especially the 1,500 people that we're feeding every day that are displaced from their homes. Some of them did run away from Hamas on the day, as he described. You just got in the car, and he turned out that he went the right direction, and they saved their lives, and they saved their families' lives. Others were also feeding about 6,000 troops that are on the front lines every day to give them a break from the rations that they're having otherwise through the army. So every person that we're helping, and everyone has a story. However, yours, it's just terrible to hear, and it's important to hear every day that the people that are living in this country and have lived through the worst atrocities of the war are, exactly as you said, Maayan, like actual people with feelings and emotion, and not just statistics and news headlines.
Yeah, and it didn't end. I mean, I think that one of the things that is so important about why we're doing this today is that there's for the outside world, the people who are not living in this country and not experiencing the day-to-day, which is the majority of the Jerusalem Post readers and viewers, are people that might look and say, okay, there was this tragedy on October 7th, and now, okay, Israel's fighting a war. That tragedy is over. But the reality, I think, as Omri, you so poignantly described, is that families are out of their homes. They have nowhere to go back to. It's not safe yet for them to go back to their homes, even if they didn't have their home destroyed, though most of them in an area like Kfar Aza were. And they're not yet getting the support they need from the government. So that is also a challenge. We're really relying on NGOs like Meir Panim and others to be able to support these families. And there are still hostages in Gaza. The war is not ended for us here in Israel, in the general population, as much as it hasn't ended inside Gaza. So I think, Mimi, do you have anything else that you want to add or that you want to share that we didn't talk about?
I think that one thing that I would love to share is that at Meir Panim, we're most well known for our 5 restaurant-style soup kitchens around the country. And I think, Omri, like you, when you moved home to be with your family after the war, I think one thing that Meir Panim has taken on is, starting from October 7th in the evening, we pivoted and we expanded our mission, because I think what's important is that people in this country, whether directly affected through the crisis, Omri, like your family, or just someone that's watching, or someone that has family or sons in the army, daughters that are waiting for their husbands to come home. One thing we saw is that this was a moment that we needed to step up. And although there are limitations to what we can do, because we're a food organization for the most part, so we can do food. And I think these are stories that everyone in this country are facing, and everyone wants to do, and everyone wants to help. And, you know, when you described, Omri, the fact that you don't even know how long your family will be able to get home, I think one thing that Meir Panim is planning for is to be able to serve as a safety net for these refugees, truly refugees, for as long as they need help. Just last week, we provided tefillin sets for a few boys that were having their bar mitzvahs. And these small things that we can secure through our community connections, they might not seem like a big deal, but for a family that is looking forward to their sons, this milestone in their life, and in a community together, to be able to just take one thing off their list, one thing they don't have to think about, is something that we really, truly feel honored to be able to do for them.
And Omri, as we get ready to sign off, is there a message that you want to provide? Remember that our viewers and our readers are all over the world. So what is it that you want to make sure that they hear?
Nadav, my brother-in-law was a very strong athlete with very special attitude, and he said before this incident he was injured in he riding his bike. He was a special triathlete, number one for his age in Israel. And a year ago he went to the World Championship in Utah, and he used to say, "Hope die last." So it's very important that whatever she does with the food and support, and there's many good things that happened in Israel since this incident, and we have to bring this and put it on the table and stay with it and stay united and stay together and support this family, because my story is one story in a very a lot of stories. A lot of people is influenced by this attack, and we need to support them, and we need to look on the bright future, to look forward, to think forward. This is my message.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for being here. I really appreciate it.